Hey guys, welcome back to the video. In this video, you guys, my spoiler review and breakdown for Jordan Peele's newest movie, Nope. After sitting on it more, I understood the movie more, but at the same time, I had a lot of thoughts, and the movie has honestly regressed for me since I watched it last night. So I'll be talking about that along with all things spoilers and explaining the ending of the movie and breaking down all the stories, subplots, and ideas. And before we get into it, if you guys enjoy my content like my movie and TV show reviews, reactions, and breakdowns, make sure to subscribe button and notifications on so you don't miss any time of a new video or I go live. But don't waste any more time, let's get right into it. So this video isn't going to be in any particular order. There'll be timestamps of what I'm talking about in the description down below. But starting it off, I did want to talk about the Gordy's home plot. That story, that whole idea is my favorite one in the entire movie. And just generally, I will talk about the themes and my problem with this movie when it comes to Jordan Peele's style very later on. Again, timestamps will be in the description. But this one story, this specific story that involves the character of Jupe, played by Steven Yeun, is absolutely phenomenal. It's probably the most important in terms of comparing that story and then our main UFO story, which I'll talk about that twist later in this video. But that entire scene is just so great to me. It's probably the scariest scene in the entire movie, and it's the most unsettling. First of all, the CG is absolutely phenomenal. There's this one shot where it's super close up on the chimp's face, and they have like this little dining table sheet that's diffusing the details on his face, and it looks so good. All you see is the detail around the chimp's chin, and the VFX is just absolutely stellar, not only in that scene but the entire movie. And I'll be talking about the UFO scenes and the visuals, the cinematography, and I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name, but he worked with Christopher Nolan a lot. I'll have the name on screen obviously, but I think that the cinematography of the movie is spectacular, and that Gordy's home scene was absolutely elevated by just the shot choices and the score, the cinematography, everything in that scene was just near perfect to me. But in terms of the theme and stuff with just that specific story, I like that Jupe uses the horse as baits in like the present day. He's using it for entertainment, whereas the chimp was used as for entertainment at Gordy's home. And I do think this is where my biggest problem with the movie comes in, is that this feels like it's the only message here. There's not much other commentary, and I'll be talking about the themes again later in this video, but I don't think that there's much deeper than this, and there's anything deeper. But at the same time, Jordan Peele has made stuff deeper. He's had made stuff where it's like, okay, maybe this Gordy's home stuff is just the very top, you know, but there's nothing deeper here. Whereas in movies like Us and Get Out, yes, there's commentary on certain things, but it goes deeper than that. It's not just your basic commentary. This feels like very general and basic commentary in terms of just the entertainment world. And honestly, I do see where he comes from with that, specifically because this movie is balancing so many different themes and so many different ideas. And I do want to talk quickly before I move on to talking about like the halves of this movie, because they're very different and very just completely on opposite sides of the spectrum in my opinion. But before we move on to that, the Gordy's home like moment where Jupe and the chimp fist bump each other and they don't end up finishing the last fist bump because Gordy ends up getting shot by the FBI or the police or whatever it is. That really did symbolize something to me, that Jupe never got that closure. So instead of being good and kind of changing the ways for the entertainment industry and not using animals and certain things for the purpose of entertainment, since he didn't finish that fist bump, he still thinks it's okay. And he never got that connection with the chimp to kind of be like, okay, I don't want to use them for entertainment. That was kind of my little theory behind it. I really don't know how right I am about that. So now I want to talk about the first half of this movie, because I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's as bad as people say. I don't think it's a bad first half, but in context of what the second half is and what the second half honestly needed more of, the first half is very lackluster in terms of just that. As a whole, it's actually a pretty good first half. The comedy hits really well. I feel like they didn't really like waste time in terms of like starting the movie off. But then as you get deeper and deeper and deeper into that first half of the movie, you kind of start to understand like, okay, they're wasting a lot of time here. You know, we didn't really get any big character translations going into the second half of this movie. There wasn't any good character setup, and nothing really called back to the first half of this movie like ever. There's no important character moments that were called back to. There's no important character moments that we really felt was necessary for our main characters. There was obviously the stuff since the movie opens with the chimp and then we end up seeing that full Gordy's home scene. That's all great, but that's not to do with our main three characters. Steven Yeun's character dies like in like 2/3 ish into the movie. Like he is obviously that twist of the UFO stuff, which I'll talk about later. That's a big catalyst for this entire film. But at the same time, it's like that was a waste of time for me, because at the end of the day, in the second half of the movie, I didn't feel anything. So I do want to move on to the second half. I feel like the first half, there isn't much to talk about. It was just very lackluster in terms of what it set up, but we kind of get to the repercussions of that in the second half. It did elevate a lot in terms of just the meaning of the movie. I definitely started to feel the effects of what they're trying to talk about, the entertainment industry, movie, and I really did feel a scary and horrifying feel and tone. And obviously Jordan Peele is really good at that. But at the same time, the biggest problem is that even though ideas start to come together, I have no emotion for a single one of our characters because there was no setup for them. Now, I am going to compare this to Get Out and Us. So without giving my ranking away, I just want to say that the other two movies did do a great job of, in the first half of the movie, setting up our care for the characters. In Get Out, Daniel Kaluuya's character, we get so much context and just surrounding information about him. Not only his friends and people outside of just his girlfriend and her family, but it just feels like we have a good environment set up. Whereas in Nope, it does feel like we have a great environment set up. We have that house that's in the middle of nowhere. We have the UFO stuff. It feels like everything's coming together well. We get introduced to great characters. That's all good. But when it comes to the nitty gritty, I didn't care for a single one of these characters at all in this film. Even Us, for me personally, even though they introduced like the opposite family pretty early on, I did like that we still got context for the family dynamics, certain dynamics between characters in the family, because that's all what happens in the real world. You have these certain dynamics between family members, and you end up caring for different relationships. When the daughter and father are together, you might care for them more than you would when the mother and son are together. Like, it's a great job of setting up context for your characters. This movie does not do that at all whatsoever, and it sucks in my opinion. The general theme is there, and I totally understand that, but it seems like at the end of the day, there's literally nothing else for us to hold on to here. It feels like there's that whole general theme, and that's it. That's just it. You're at the surface level, but I think the biggest issue is that they're trying to do too much. So I'm going to talk about themes now, because there's not much deep commentary, but I think where it gets into the weird areas is that it's trying to balance so many genres. It's trying to balance the Western, the comedy, the dark, the thriller, and kind of the horror. And it tries to balance all of those things within all three acts, and it doesn't do a great job of any of it. I will say, I went in expecting a comedy after that second trailer, which I didn't even want to watch. I was going to try to avoid it completely. I thought it gave away too much at the time. It didn't end up giving away that much, but the vibes were definitely more of a comedy. And I like that. I like that, honestly. I was like, okay, Jordan Peele's doing something different. I don't mind it. But then when you get into the movie, the second half of this movie does not feel like a comedy at all. There's funny moments. In terms of the themes themselves, there was a little bit of racism commentary at the beginning in terms of just the privileges on set and stuff like that, which I really loved the commentary of it. And I really loved the way that Peele integrated that. It didn't feel forced. It felt natural. And he's so good at that. And he's so great at just creating this environment of uneasiness, even when it's nothing scary. Just Daniel Kaluuya's face when he's trying to just figure out what he wants to do on set. And I'll talk about the performances later in this video because they were all absolutely phenomenal. But that's about it. That's the surface left. It's mostly on just the entertainment industry, obviously with the Gordy stuff, the horses is bait for the UFOs, and just anything entertainment wise. And it's cool. It's a great idea. And one thing I really liked was when that director was trying to get the shot of the UFO and he didn't want to exploit the UFO stuff, said that not everything needs to be shared to the public, and it doesn't, maybe it's better if stuff remains an illusion, stuff like that. And I really love that commentary. Again, I love this commentary so much, but at the end of the day, if I don't care for the characters that this commentary is surrounding, then I'm not going to care about the movie itself. So now to explain the twist, honestly, I don't even know if there's much explaining to do. It's just like not an alien, it's not UFOs, and they kind of marketed to be like it's aliens coming to Earth, which I really did like. I feel like a lot of people might not be happy that they mixed up the marketing and they made us think that it was just going to be a basic alien sci-fi thriller movie, but I liked it. I thought it was a damn good idea. I thought they did a great job with the twist itself. Honestly, in Us and Get Out, the twists were not something absolutely huge, but they felt more impactful as they were closer to us. But I think since this is more of a sci-fi movie, the twist didn't really hit for me as much. Get Out, it was that the entire family were literally like cultists, and that's scary because that's stuff that could happen in the real world. On the other hand, Us was about this underground system, these doppelgangers, these clones of family, and at that moment, it was just absolutely insane. It was mind-blowing because it's like there could be people underground, who knows, like we'll never know. But this UFO stuff, it definitely felt too out of this world for me to care, and I just don't think Jordan Peele's style of twist fits in that. Now I will say this movie is ambitious as hell, and I'm going to talk about that in the next section of this video because that's one thing I can respect the hell out of for Jordan Peele, because this thing is just absolutely ambitious. It's out of this moon ambitious, to be honest. But I think at times he bites off more than he can chew, specifically because you can see where he kind of peaks in his last two movies. He kind of peaks where it's more relatable. He kind of peaks where the comedy, instead something that we can all relate to and connect to. But this movie is about UFOs, aliens, extraterrestrial creatures. We can't really relate to that. And with that being said, I just think that the biggest problem with the mystery of it all is that it was too wild. I never felt attached. I never felt genuinely excited or exhilarated. I was scared, and I'll talk about this more later. I was scared, but I wasn't scared for the characters. I was more scared for just the horror elements. And this is where I want to get into just my biggest issue overall. There was really no threat to me in this movie. The tension was non-existent, and it needed a threat. Like, it needed something to make me feel like I was fearing for my characters' lives. And there was that one scene where it was those kids dressed up as aliens in the horse barn, and they were trying to trick Daniel Kaluuya's character. And that was a great scene. The tension was up in the air, but I was never fearful that he was gonna die. I was fearful that I was gonna get jump scared. And I kind of want to explain it this way, right? I can be jump scared even if the thing is not scary. But I think this all goes back to the fact that the first half of this movie didn't really let me connect with the characters, and then the characters never really connected with the UFO to me, and just all that kind of stuff. I guess this movie just lacked connection, and I think it's because it was balancing so much in terms of genre and scale and scope and size. Like, there was just so much going on that it felt like character development, and the plot, which was honestly, in my opinion, paper thin. All these subplots and ideas and themes, they all went under the rug because they were trying to just make it as big as possible while still trying to keep that small tension feel, and it just didn't translate all the way through. Now to talk about the acting, I know usually people touch on this first thing in a review, but I just want to wait till the end because I want to end on a positive. This movie's acting is phenomenal. Keke Palmer is easily the standout. I've never seen her in a live action movie before somehow, but her acting towards the end of this movie is damn near perfect. She is scared but motivated. It's just really good, and she's also funny as hell in the first half of this movie. She is so good. Her dynamic with Daniel Kaluuya is stellar, and Daniel Kaluuya himself, obviously, he's one of the greatest actors right now working, in my opinion. And I will say this movie is more of a reserved character, especially more than he is in like Get Out and stuff like that. But he tells this acting style and story with his eyes. Jordan Peele does this really great thing where he puts darker skin on a darker background and basically highlights the eyes of the characters. And Daniel Kaluuya's eyes in this movie are just scary as hell. Like, not in a bad way. Like, it's good. Like, I don't know how to really describe it. It creates another layer of unsettling. It creates another layer of suspense. There's this one scene where he's sitting in the car and then the UFO drops like a horse into his car, and you can see he's like slowly starting to look up, and it's just his white eyes just bulging on the screen. It's so great. It's so well done. And Jordan Peele as a whole, I mean, obviously he knows how to do tension. He knows how to do horror. He's a master at that. And I think Daniel Kaluuya just strives off of that so much. Other actors, Steven Yeun and his child actor, dude, they're so good. The child actor is only in this movie for a little bit, but he is so damn good. He is just, that chimp scene is my favorite scene in the entire movie, probably. That Gordy's home scene is just stellar. You can see the pain in Steven Yeun's character's eyes whenever we cut back from that flashback. It's something that's so subtle, but yet so emotionally impactful. And I'm going to be honest, I do think Steven Yeun's subplot carries this movie, strictly because, yes, it connects with the theme of the entertainment industry, but it really is the scariest scene because it's the most relatable. I think that's where my problem is with this movie. I think we've cracked the code. This movie fails to keep me engaged in terms of tension with the characters when it's super sci-fi. And Jordan Peele, we've known this from Get Out and Us, Jordan Peele does the best job when it's relatable, when it's one-on-one, when this could somehow possibly actually happen to us. But that Gordy's home subplot is really realistic, especially when you think of it in our real world. If you go to a theme park or an amusement park and you see a show where they're using animals for the show, a circus, anything like that, it's scarily relatable. And that's what makes that subplot so good. And on top of that, obviously, Steven Yeun, and then the child actor that plays Steven Yeun as a kid is also just phenomenal. Also, Brandon Pereira, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He is great in this movie. He's like the comedic relief if you were to designate it to one character. Him and Keke Palmer are absolutely hilarious in this movie, but he's also great. I'm excited to see him in a lot more things. But overall, I like Nope. I thought it's a good movie. I think Jordan Peele does a great job directing and writing this movie, but I think it just falls short in the aspect of the plot and the characters. It's just all very paper thin based on the scale and scope and size of this entire movie. Last night when I got out of the theater, I was leaning more for an 8 to 8.5, but right now I'm leaning from a 7.5 to 8. Let me know your score and your thoughts on Jordan Peele's Nope in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.